Good evening, everybody. We're going to begin. Just want to let you know, if you need to know where the bathroom is, it's right out by the gym. I want to welcome you to Eagle Peak. My name is Dan, and I'm the principal. And I also want to let everybody know, if you know of children that are still in any sort of need, we're coordinating a lot of services here at the school and with the school district to support our children. And give us a call if there's stories that you need to share about how we can help the kids. All right, so at this point, I want to turn it over to our supervisor, Gary Brown.
That works. Hello, everyone. Here we are. And we've been through really a dramatic experience. A lot of people have been hurt. And now we have to go into a recovery phase. There are several people in this room, numerous people that are here to help you tonight. Also, other elected representatives. Not coming up to speak, but I want you to know that they're here. We have Heather from Congressman Huffman's office, and we have Emily from Assemblymember Wood's office. They're both here, but I'm going to introduce next. And I really thank you for taking time out. This is really, really important. All the information that we're going to be able to share tonight for recovery. So, I'd like to introduce a close friend of mine. We worked very closely together when he was county supervisor in Sonoma. And I'm honored to introduce Senator Mike McGuire.
Good evening. First of all, I just want to say how grateful I am to be here tonight. And then also say I cannot imagine what the last 3 weeks have been like. And also let you know that the state of California is here now. We're going to be here in the months to come. We're going to be here as we all rebuild together. Before I get into some brief words, I'd like to turn it over to Chief Gonzalez to be able to say a few items. And I just want to say how grateful we are to CAL FIRE and the amazing firefighters throughout the County of Mendocino for all their work.
Tremendously appreciate the support. George Gonzalez, I'm your local CAL FIRE Unit Chief. I just want to let you know that similar to what was just said, we're implementing into the local recovery system. We've been working with your local CEO, Carmel Angelo, and we're here. We're here through the long-term recovery process. Like it or love it, this phase, every CAL FIRE phase you see around here, we're going to be here throughout the remainder of the incident to help reestablish what we have before the fire and after the fire. It is going to be a long-term effort, but I just want everybody to know that we're here and we're going to support you and we're going to rebuild, and we're going to rebuild better, bigger, and stronger. Thank you.
To be very quick, in regard to just a very brief update about where we've been, and I know that Carmel Angelo is going to be going in depth as well. I'm also here with Randy Steiner from the California Office of Emergency Services. Randy is now going to become a new resident of Mendocino County. He's spending so much time here, and I do want to say thank you to the California Office of Emergency Services for all the incredible work over these past 3 weeks going on forward. What I'll share with you is since the very beginning of these unprecedented disasters, the state of California has been embedded in Mendocino County. One item that we've said from the very beginning, no need will go unmet. And we mean that, and we're going to mean that here for the months and years to come. What I'll share with you is that we've been focused on obviously all issues now of cleanup. And we've been making some significant progress over the last several days. Out of the 337 parcels that we're focusing on household hazardous debris, we've already completed 159. That is the first phase that we have to complete to be able to get to the second phase that we'll call brick and mortar. Being able to get in, remove all that remains of households. I will also let you know the Army Corps of Engineers is ready to start moving in and to do the significant cleanup starting next week. We are pushing hard to be able to get this done. And there is constant coordinating between the County of Mendocino as well as the state of California. We're also very focused on issues of transitional housing. Where the state of California wants to focus is how we're going to be able to move individuals who may be in hotels into transitional housing here in the coming weeks. That's another significant focus of ours, to ensure that you and your family are comfortable as we move into the winter. The other area that we're focused on is making sure that the County of Mendocino has the financial resources they need to be able to continue the same level of service. And that is why I want to take a moment to say thank you to the County Board of Supervisors, as well as the County Administrator's Office. We're also focused on making sure that we are bringing in tax revenue that may be lost due to the fires, so we don't miss a beat in the next fiscal year. I will finally say, and I know we're going to talk about right of entry forms here tonight. Bottom line is this: if you choose to go your own way, it is absolutely your right. What I will share with you is that the state of California and the federal government is ready to move efficiently and fast to be able to get this cleaned up. Even if you ultimately decide not to go with the public option, I would encourage you to at least fill out a right of entry form here this evening. Once this cleanup gets moving next week, it is going to move fast. I will say, full disclosure, to be able to move fast, the state of California, working with the Army Corps of Engineers, will completely remove all permanent structure off of the lot. Will that add an additional cost on the backside to be able to redo a foundation? Yes. But what I will say is, candidly, the longer we wait to be able to clean up, the more it's going to cost all of us. And I know you as well. My last item I'll say tonight, and turn it over to the supervisor, is the North Bay Fire Relief Fund. If you have not filled out an application, we brought applications here tonight. If you lost a home, you will receive an automatic $1,000 from the North Bay Fire Relief Fund, which we've established with the Press Democrat and the Redwood Credit Union. Any student who lost a home will get an automatic $500 to be able to replace school supplies and school clothes. We delivered those to the school districts here at 5 p.m. this evening. The school districts will start distributing those gift cards each to students into this week and into next week. We are here for the long term. We raised $16 million, and we are dedicated to the County of Mendocino to be able to continue to deliver assistance however long they need it. Here to answer questions. Randy's here to answer questions as well. We'll be here for the duration of the evening, and I commit to you, I promise, we're here now, but we're going to be here in the future to ensure that we're building stronger than that. Supervisor, thank you for having me here.
And Senator McGuire is absolutely correct. There are a lot of fundraising efforts going on. Most recently, another one was announced. So what I'm saying to all of you is people do care, and we haven't been lost in the math of this fire. It's true. And CEO Carmel Angelo will talk a little bit more about the funds that have been raised, what is going on. And before I get to Ms. Angelo, I want to say county staff has been working 24/7 for all of you. I want to hear a big hand for them. They've given a lot. We immediately formed a recovery team, and that recovery team, even though it's left the college area, they are now at the Railway Shopping Center, right next to Rayleigh's Market. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Mendocino County's Chief Executive Officer, Carmel Angelo. Thank you, Chair.
So, good evening, everyone. We're really glad to see you here. I really appreciate Supervisor Brown's comments. What you'll find peppered throughout this room are county staff and state staff and FEMA staff. And they're all here to assist you. So if you have a need, tonight's the night to say it if you haven't said it before. And the focus of this community meeting will be on the ROE forms, but there is information we'd like to give you as well, and we're certainly here to answer your questions. You know, over the last couple weeks, I think we've all heard stories. I know that Supervisor Brown has actually been going door to door, talking with people in her district, Redwood Valley and County Valley, making sure everybody's okay and that their needs are met. People have been going into the local assistance centers, and we're hearing their stories, and people have come into the boardroom, and we're hearing their stories. And some of the stories that we're hearing are really about local heroes. Some of you in this room that have, when the fire hit, you went out, you helped your neighbors, you helped your family. You didn't leave until you knew that everybody was notified. And you've heard those stories, we appreciate it, and we thank you for your work. I want to also say we have another local hero here tonight, and that is Chief George Gonzalez. And I know that Senator McGuire has already talked about Chief Gonzalez, but I want to say this as the CEO of this county, that the work that has been done over the past few days could not have been done without Chief Gonzalez and CAL FIRE. And I just want you all to know that when you talk about local heroes, we have one right up here on this stage, and CAL FIRE and their crews have been out there along with Cal OES, along with the Conservation Corps, doing what they can to secure debris so that it doesn't go into the river. We don't have another problem with contamination along with the fires. And I really want to acknowledge CAL FIRE, and I've said it 4 times now in the last 30 seconds. But I want you to know, as CEO of this county, how critical it is to have CAL FIRE on board and the work that they've done. So thank you. So as Supervisor Brown mentioned, there are multiple fronts collecting money for the fire and for the people who have been exposed with the fire. I want to mention the Community Foundation. The Community Foundation of Mendocino County has collected over $700,000 for fire victims. They have given $250,000 of that $700,000 to North Coast Opportunities to disseminate to fire victims. The Community Foundation has been collecting money not only inside of Mendocino County, but outside as well. They are working extra hard to make sure that even people outside of our communities know what's happening here and are willing to contribute. So I want you to know that they're there, the Community Foundation, they're there, and they're there to assist you. Additionally, MRC, Mendocino Redwood Company. I believe there was a press release that came out today. I don't know if anybody has seen it. I haven't had time to read my email, but in talking with them, with their representatives, they're pledging $400,000 for fire victims as well. And there will be a grant process to actually disseminate that money. So you can see Mendocino County pulls together, and we're really appreciative to our community-based organizations and other businesses in our community that are doing what they can to help you here. Senator McGuire mentioned a couple things. I don't know if he mentioned the concert on November 9th at AT&T Park. This is a benefit for our Northern California region that has been impacted by the fires. And I think Senator McGuire may have walked out, but I want to tell you that oh, there you are, okay. He has been instrumental in getting this concert and this fundraiser actually implemented. And so, really, Senator McGuire, again, thank you for all of your work. Thank you. Then, of course, Mendocino Strong, there's a fundraiser on Saturday night, and I know that there are a lot of us within the county system that have purchased tickets, plan on going, and have contributed to that fundraiser. And again, that's for fire victims. Very briefly, I want to tell you about some of the work that's been done. We don't have to tell you that this is a long process, and there's multiple steps that you all have to go through to get back to where you were. We have to go through some steps as well. And once the fire is contained, or partially contained, then we start looking at the debris. And we're working with our state and federal partners, as Senator McGuire has talked about, the Army Corps coming in to do debris. Before that can happen, though, we talked about Department of Toxic Substances, and I believe they're here, and we'll be talking here in a few minutes. But the other key task that we had to have done was the stabilization of certain areas in the county, and specifically around Tonkai Road, and to be certain that the debris doesn't go into the Russian River. And that's the stabilization that we've been doing. If you see crews out in that area, and they will be moving to Potter Valley, if you see those crews, that's what they're doing. They're trying to really stabilize the debris, stabilize the land, so it doesn't go right into the water once we have the rains. This is a big effort, and it's one of the most critical components of what we're doing, because we don't want another event that would be the same as the fire. So again, I've mentioned CAL FIRE, you'll see the crews out there. You'll also see the Conservation Corps. When you see we have about close to 100 people out in those areas. They've identified the sensitive areas, the high priority areas. That's what they're doing. Kirk Ford from our hazmat team and his staff are out there. They're all out there. So I think some of you are probably driving by and stopping, wondering what's happening. But that is a key task that's going on right now. We anticipate that will take at least 7 to 10 days. And we're there, and we're doing it, and we're really trying to be certain that we don't have any additional problems. I think with that, I also want to mention the Redwood Valley map, and Chris Boyd. I don't know if you're in the room.
She is.
Okay, I don't know, Chris, if you want to
Chris,
come up here and say a few words. Great. The Redwood Valley map, along with Supervisor Brown last week, had a meeting at the Grange, and we have looked to them to help to organize and to assist us with giving us information as far as where the needs are. Chris?
Hi, everybody. We're the Municipal Advisory Council. We were appointed by the Board of Supervisors a year and a half ago, working on the Dollar General stuff. Now it looks like we have another priority. And so we're going to have a meeting on the 8th in the evening, our usual time, usually 5 o'clock at the Grange. Don't know if that's available, but we're going to try to do that. And we're going to look at what our role might be, how we might change what we're working on to deal with this new reality that we're all living with. The idea that all of a sudden, when we realize that in the middle of the night, a killer like this can come in, and it's a new normal. So my personal background was 11 years ago this month, I retired from Orange County Fire Authority as a deputy fire marshal. I was working in fire prevention, hazardous materials, and I've also done disaster planning for Orange County. So this is sort of in my wheelhouse. I thought I retired, but some of these old issues are coming back, like the hazmats, how important it is to secure all of your properties and sites. You know, 60 years ago maybe, when there was a big fire like in Bel Air, they just go in and bulldoze everything and take it to the regular dump. And it wasn't until some of the big fires like 2003 and 2007 in San Diego County, the Cedar Fire and the Witch Fire, I worked with the Director of Environmental Health, Mike Dorsey, at the time, and he'd come to our meetings exhausted, pulling his hair out, going, we have so many tons of waste, household hazardous waste, all of these properties, all of the burned debris, the heavy metals, anything you can think of that changes through combustion, and it created terrible hazardous waste problems. So there are a lot of regulations now that deal with how you dispose of that safely for the workers, for the ground, for the surface waters and the groundwater, your wells, our water here in Redwood Valley. So it's much more complex than I ever would have imagined. And if it were just me, I'm just going to offer my personal opinion. It's just 2 cents for what it's worth. But I think the public option is something that could address some needs pretty quickly. Some of the costs associated with hauling hazardous waste can go sky high really fast. Not every contractor knows all of the complicated regulations associated with hazardous materials disposal and all of the worker safety issues that might be involved. So if it were just me, I live on Road E. I was blessed, I was lucky. My house, where I used to live in Orange, evacuated the same day for a fire, which came right up to the edge of my neighborhood. These are unprecedented fire situations. And the faster that your public agencies can assist you in getting this done, I know it's good for you, and I think it's good for all of us in Redwood Valley. That's just my 2 cents. And thank you very much.
Okay, so during the fires, we had 13 press conferences, and at every one of those press conferences, Sheriff Allman led along with Chief Gonzalez. And what we said as county staff is that Mendocino County is open, we're open for business, all of our offices are open, and we're here to serve you. And I want to say that again tonight, we're here to serve you. So with that, Chief, do you have anything else to say? No. Chief Gonzalez. All right, Tammy Moss-Chandler is coming up. Tammy is a recovery director. Nash Gonzalez, our planning director, is with her. I will say that under the direction of our Board of Supervisors, who are doing everything they can to assure that county staff have a clear path to work with our citizens to work through the response and the recovery. We have assigned a recovery director, and that's Tammy. And so I'm going to turn it over to Tammy now. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you all again for coming tonight. We know you have a lot of questions, and that's why you're here. And tonight, we just wanted to make sure you know that tonight, as you can see by the agenda, we're going to talk in detail about the debris cleanup and removal that you've been hearing about. Try to answer as many questions as we can on those topics. And what we want you to know is if you're here for a different topic, if really your pressing questions tonight is something in addition to or besides debris removal and cleanup, then Zoe Fernandez is in the back right there, and she's actually going to be collecting information about your other questions and concerns. We're going to be having a town hall meeting in 2 more weeks where we'll have more people who can answer additional questions. But tonight, the experts we have in the room are specific to debris cleanup and removal, the right of entry form, and the next steps that'll be occurring, and what's happening right now this week as we're here. So if you have other topics that you want to talk about, then please let Zoe know. And we know 2 additional topics that are going to be covered in the next 2 weeks. There's a great agricultural forum, so if your questions really are about ag land and your commercial property, that forum will be in 2 weeks. And tonight's right of entry really is about your single-family residence and your personal home. And that's really the focus of this evening. And the property that's right around your home, but not your commercial property or your rural and ag lands. So that forum is in 2 weeks on the 15th, and there's flyers about that in the back as well. And then we'll also have a detailed workshop next week to go into more detail about insurance than we can cover tonight, but we'll answer any questions we can tonight. So I am so appreciative to have Nash Gonzalez as the leader of our debris task force, and he's working so closely with Trace Strickland, our environmental health director. And they're going to join me up here with some of our federal and state partners. We really want to invite up right now DTSC, and Adam Palmer's here. And they are right now picking up household hazardous waste, as you heard from the senator. They've made great progress over the past week. And he's going to talk just in a little bit more detail about phase 1. And I'll let Nash introduce any other aspects of phase 1, and then we'll go into some detail about phase 2.
Good evening. So during the fires, DTSC actually reached out to us, and we started coordinating at the very beginning. So Adam and his team reached out, and basically what they were waiting for was for containment to take place. They then mobilized and started working with our department so that we could go ahead and work with folks out there. And so they're tasked by going in and removing household hazardous waste. They explained that to us, so that then the next phase would be the actual cleanup that would occur by the Army Corps of Engineers. So again, kudos to Adam and his team, because they have done quite a bit in the last a couple of weeks. They've been working long hours. They have been going site to site. They started at the north end of the valley and started to move down. Now they're moving up into the Jenkins area. And their priority right now is to tackle those sites that need to be buttoned up to deal with the Russian River. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Adam, who can go into the details on what they're doing boots on the ground.
Okay, thank you, Nash. My name is Adam Palmer. I'm the supervisor of the Department of Toxic Substances Control's Emergency Response Unit. So I think, I spoke I think it was last week or the week before at your last town hall meeting. We were mission tasked by the Office of Emergency Services to come to Mendocino County and assess each of the impacted properties for household hazardous waste and asbestos. Today we have 2 crews in the county, and we've assessed 159 properties, and we recognize we probably have about 180 left. We'll work through Friday, and then starting next Monday, I'm going to bring in 1 to 2 additional crews, so we'll be ramping up to 3 to 4 to kind of speed things up as much as we can. Some of the typical things we're finding in some of the properties are burnt batteries associated with cars, lawnmowers, golf carts. We have seen some solar batteries. Where possible, we try to rake up any solar panels that are destroyed. We have seen some waste oil, some fuels, pesticides, herbicides, that type of material. So for some of you that have gone back on your property after we've completed our HHW assessment. If you see some of the color coding, what it means is if you see a propane tank, we've taken the valve off of it, and then we mark it with the white X. And what that does is it tells the Army Corps when they show up at the debris crews that that tank's now been rendered harmless. So it's not under pressure anymore. We've done the same with acetylene tanks, oxygen tanks, and propane tanks that we've found on your properties. And so essentially they can treat that as recyclable metal. You may have seen some pink color coding inside the burn debris. What we're doing is we're marking what we consider to be suspect asbestos, and so we rope it off. And again, when the debris crews come in, they know that could be asbestos-containing material, and it needs to be treated a little differently than your general debris. When we complete our assessment of each of the property, we leave a stake at the entrance of the property with the white. It's colored white at the top, and it's marked ETSC. And that way, when the debris crews come in, they know that we've cleared this property and it's ready to go for debris removal. Like I said, we have 2 crews working here. I hope to get up to 3 to 4 next week to speed things along. We're working closely with Mendocino County and with the Army Corps. We're sharing all of our data with them so they can start developing their strategy for the debris removal that's going to be starting shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. So just to clarify, we are doing this first phase 1 is under our local health declaration of an emergency, and that's why it doesn't require a right of entry for them to come on and to clear this immediate hazardous waste from any sites in Mendocino County. And the other thing we're doing under that health declaration of an emergency is the watershed protection work that you heard about from CEO Angelo that's being led by CAL FIRE's crews out in the field right now. So those 2 things we're doing immediately and urgently, and we're trying to get as much information to you, so thank you, Adam, for clarifying what different markings mean and why we're taking these measures right now. You know, there's not a landfill that you can take household hazardous waste like this anywhere nearby. So DTSC is staging all of that and trucking it out and taking it to appropriate places for either recycling or proper disposal. So thank you for your work. So what I want to make sure everyone knows is at your tables today, we have question cards, and we really encourage you to document your questions in writing because we're going to be updating frequently asked questions. So on your table, you have a sheet that has this blue graphics on the front. And that actually is this highlight of what's happening across the region and why you might hear different organizations at the state or federal level doing different things in different counties. So if you're down in Sonoma County and hear something on the radio, you may hear US EPA is doing their household hazardous waste cleanup. Difference than here, where it's DTSC with our state partner. And that's really the magnitude of this tragedy across California. California didn't have enough resources to do it all themselves and had to pull in additional federal resources. So it's a very unusual situation, and we're hoping this helps clarify that communication for you. And we'll be adding to these frequently asked questions with questions you have. So if you please document those. And then we also have county employees. So if you're a county employee who's here helping with questions and information, raise your hand. And they're at many of the tables, and they're going to help collect those as we can answer those tonight and then get it up on the website what we're not able to address this evening. So I wanted to just recognize again Chief Gonzalez and what you see on your agenda is the other phase 2 watershed emergency mitigation process. And there are a few pictures that are posted in the front and along the side that give you a visual, if you haven't been in the area, of what's happening from a before and after perspective to be able to see the work that's happening with this 100-person crew right now in the field. So we're happy to answer questions about that. If you specifically have questions, please write those down. We'll get to those shortly. So I want to invite up now the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers who are here. We have Laura Ortiz, who's our government liaison, and she has her subject matter expert here, Josh, which many of you saw last week when you were, if you were at the MAC meeting in Redwood Valley. And I'm going to actually have Josh walk you through what's happening right now and what the team that is formed for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to take the next steps in the process. Thanks, Josh.
Good evening. So right now we've got a pretty robust team in place. We have several debris SMEs from our national cadre that are out helping direct all of this. We've also, in the Sacramento district office where I'm out, we put together a whole PRT. It's 14 people that are managing the contractor and all the other aspects, tribal liaisons, watershed issues, hydrology issues. So we have all these experts to draw on. So those are sitting in Sacramento helping us formulate a plan for how we're going to attack this and make sure that we do everything right and that the things that we want the contractor to do are written correctly into our contract. We've begun meeting with our contractor. They're in place. They're starting to stage up and do their piece of it. Today they started their baseline sample testing. So they were out today looking for unburned areas so they could test soils and make sure that when we turn the property back over to the homeowner, the soil testing is similar to undamaged areas. So we've got a baseline that we can put things back to. They're already bringing in trucks and contractors. They've been looking, I know, I've talked to a bunch of people who have said they've had trouble getting in touch with them, that they've been overwhelmed with local contractors and they're doing their best to ramp that up. I'll share, I don't have it off the top of my head, but I have it written down. They've created a 1-800 number for people to help get in touch with them. But what they're doing this weekend and through and tomorrow, we're going to start our initial site assessments. So we'll be going out to those properties that we have right of entry forms for and doing that initial assessment. That process involves the contractor and for every single property, a core quality assurance officer. So somebody like myself will be out there making sure the contractor is appropriately recording septic tanks, wellheads, those types of things, so that we develop for each individual property a scope of work, what the contractor is going to be responsible for, so that we can go back when they're done and make sure that everything was done according to that plan. And then our goal is, as soon as those are done, we'll start contacting homeowners where we have done the initial assessment and give them notification that we're going to start the debris removal process. Our hope is to be able to start that this weekend. Our contractors ramping up, they'll have in place by middle of next week as many as 30 crews ready to run and go through the state, through the counties here and start cleaning up debris. I think that's the bulk. We've got some changes that have happened over time, and as this develops out, we'll be putting in place kind of a scope of how we're going to attack it. Our contractor wants to be as efficient as possible, and so as we get the ROEs in, we'll be plotting those on maps and trying to figure out what the best way to attack this is. We'll be looking at those critical areas first, so anything that could impact environmental features such as the Russian River, those will be things that we'll prioritize and getting into those areas first so we eliminate that hazard.
Thank you, Josh. So don't go anywhere because we know there'll be more for you in a minute. So ROE, I think most people are beginning to know that's right of entry, and that form is on all the tables as well as the fact sheet. And we wanted to take you to a few sections of the right of entry form tonight because we've gotten a lot of questions and we want you to be able to see tonight how it's worded in the right of entry form and what the answers are that you hear from us specific to the right of entry forms. What we also want to make sure that you hear, and I was thinking we probably want Adam at DTSC just to make sure he's close by. Close by right here. Thanks, Adam, to answer those questions. So what the right of entry form, when the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers goes and finishes their cleanup work and finishes a property, they give you a certificate of clean property, which you can have then to give to planning and building and take your next steps. And then we know that we are about a week behind some of our other neighboring counties in rolling out the details of the application process for private debris cleanup. But what we have for you tonight, as you leave tonight, there's just a one-page double-sided flyer that gives all the standards that you have to follow for private debris cleanup. And what we've developed locally is based on those guidelines from the state of what's required for standards. And that's, many of you may have seen that because that's on the California's website as well for the fires. But it will give you those guidelines that are required for private cleanup. And our application process will be finalized and go to the Board of Supervisors next Tuesday. We're thankful that we're having input from some of our local partners about some of their concerns about what other counties are doing, and we're trying to address those proactively in the next few days so we can bring the best process possible to our board next Tuesday for private debris cleanup. So we want to take you just a bit through the step-by-step. So I want to make sure if you don't have a right of entry form, we can get you one, so just raise your hand and one of the county employees will bring you one if anybody in the back doesn't have one. So, thank you. So the very first page of the right of entry form in that grant of entry section talks about removal of foundations and trees, and we know there's so many questions. So Josh, we'd really like you to talk a little bit about the team members you have on your team, including arborists and any of their roles, and how they're going to deal with trees and vehicles.
So trees is something that's been a moving target for us, and we've gotten new guidance. FEMA has decided with Cal OES that the program that we had in place to work with trees was going to be too labor intensive, and the potential was there that we would take trees out that needed to be saved. So our new plan is that we will not be removing any trees from the property except those that immediately impact our ability to get on and clear debris from the main structure. So we will not be evaluating any other trees on the property except those, again, where maybe a tree's come across the driveway and we can't get equipment in, or there's a hazardous tree hanging over the house where it can impact crew safety. Those will be removed and every other tree will be left there, and then it will be the responsibility of the homeowner to evaluate those. For the vehicles, if they're in the right-of-way, so if they're in the regular street, those will be left as is. My understanding is that California Air Patrol is working with Mendocino County to evaluate and those cars and then work with insurance companies once they're cleared of VIN titles, that those can be taken care of. If they're on the private property, the same thing will be happening. Highway Patrol will be going on and evaluating those cars. We will be leaving those cars in place if the homeowner wants to recover that vehicle. We're asking that that be noted on the right of entry form. We will move that to the side so that we are not impacting them or doing our debris removal, and then leave it there. Once it's been cleared, if the homeowner wants that removed, then we'll be removing those as scrap as soon as they've been cleared by the Highway Patrol.
Thank you, Josh. So if you have additional questions that Josh didn't answer, please write it down on those question cards and pass them down to the employees so we can make sure they get it. And Janelle Ross is going to be walking the room very soon, picking those up to make sure we address any additional questions. So the next page, if you go to page 2 of your right of entry form, it talks about private insurance. And we know there's been a lot of questions about private insurance. And the frequently asked question has very good documentation of the state's position about insurance. And it's very clear that they're only going to offset the cost of this cleanup with what your insurance covers for debris removal. There's no other charge. But that can be a complicated process. So we've actually asked Joel if you can come up and introduce yourself. He's with the California Department of Insurance Commissioners. He's going to correct me if I got that wrong. And he can tell you a little bit about what they're looking at to support insurance providers, and as well as individuals trying to work through the complicated processes of insurance. So thank you, Joel.
Okay, I know most people don't like to hear too much about insurance in their lives, and you're hearing way more about it than you ever hoped to. And I'm sorry you were in that position and are here tonight to hear about this, but I want to mention a couple things generally about insurance. I think there'll be maybe another opportunity to answer some more insurance-specific questions for you. But while I'm here, I just want to mention for those of you who are out of your homes and starting to utilize that loss of use or additional living expense coverage, to just make sure you're managing that money to extend for the long run if you're going to take some time to rebuild your home, which most people will be doing. While there is some information out there about when there's a catastrophe like this, that the period of time that the ALE extends goes to at least 2 years, which is generally true. The dollar amount under your coverage does not increase. So you can use it longer, but it's the same number of dollars. And so you want to make sure what you have there will extend as far as it can. So I work for the Department of Insurance. Commissioner Dave Jones, who I report to at the Department of Insurance, of course, is here to work for you. There is an 800 number that I hope some of you have utilized, and I hope more of you will. That's 1-800-43, let me make sure I get mine right. 1-800-927-4357. That gets you to a hotline where people have claims backgrounds and can help you with your homeowner's issues. Specifically here on the right of entry permit, I want to focus your attention under that number 2, private insurance coverage. The second paragraph starts out if the owner has insurance in effect at the time of wildfire. So hopefully most of you had insurance. And it gets to this line that's kind of embedded there in the middle of the paragraph. Owner authorizes any benefits or proceeds payable under the coverage for the vehicle and debris removal or any similar coverages be paid directly to the county, after which the owner shall not be liable for any further costs to the county. And then the paragraph below that is for people who have a different kind of coverage. So generally, your insurance policies, for many homeowners policies, have an additional amount of coverage that can be available for debris removal. The insurers are making that available. So without deducting anything from your limits for your dwelling. So that's an important note, right? Typically, they might wait to see if you had additional limits available from your dwelling that weren't used and apply them, but they're not doing that here. They're just going to apply what is typically a 5% additional amount, 5% of your dwelling limit that is available for debris removal. They're going to be pledging that here without deducting from your limits, and that will be your sole amount that you would be having to pay. So nothing coming from you if you have this homeowner insurance. So that's for policies that have an additional amount for debris removal. They don't all have that. Some of them will allow you to use some of your dwelling costs for debris removal. That would come out of your dwelling limit. So that's another kind of policy. But that's not going to happen here if you read this second piece that follows there. In the event that coverage for debris removal are not provided on the basis of a specified amount. So if you don't have additional coverage, usually the insurer would just take, money away from your limit. Well, what's going to happen here is you'll have your entire limit to use to rebuild your home. If at the time you complete the building process, there is money left between what was spent to rebuild and your limit, then that money will go towards the debris removal. If there's nothing left, then you will contribute $0 to the debris removal. Right? So if you have a $100,000 limit on your dwelling and you spend $95,000 rebuilding, the $5,000 would, at the end of the process, at the very end, after you've rebuilt, years from now possibly, I'm sorry to say, but that $5,000 would go to debris removal. If you use the whole $100,000 then nothing goes to debris removal. By signing this, this is what you agree to do. And again, if you read to the end of that second line, it says, after which the owner shall not be liable for further costs to the county. So, in other words, if you make this commitment and your insurers make this, have agreed to this, which I think they all are, then you won't have any personal liability, and it'll be much less expensive for everybody involved to go this public route. So again, someone mentioned their best 2 cents was to encourage you to join us. I'm not saying this is that with absolute certainty that I know exactly, but my best 2 cents are also that this is one of the more straightforward decisions that you have to deal with here in terms of the benefit of joining in the public agreement.
Thank you, Joel. So one thing, 2 things I want to make sure people know is that we actually are going to be reaching out to the insurance providers through Heather Corral in our risk management office. We're going to be reaching out to the primary insurance providers and making sure they also are clear about this and can support you through this process. So if there are any concerns that you have as you talk with your insurance provider, please let us know. It's something we want to help support. If there's confusion by your insurance provider of what this means or what Joel just explained, we want to help you get the support to work through that. And Joel, one question we've had is, what if someone is concerned that their insurance provider is actually not providing them helpful or good or beneficial information? Where would they go?
Okay, so, I'll just say a couple just general hints, right? One is to get a copy of your policy, the whole policy, so that you read through it, not just your declarations page. Everyone should be assigned an adjuster at this point that has a claim, a specific person that you can contact at the company. Over time, you may find that there will be a handoff from one adjuster to the next. But the companies now keep that pretty limited, try to keep you assigned to a specific adjuster. So you should feel that you can contact that adjuster with questions. So please do that. Like most of us are not experts in insurance, never really think about it, and hope we never have had to. But talk to your adjuster. If you still feel that that they're not being upfront or it's still confusing, please call the department. This is what the people are there to help you with. And if you've been to any of the local assistance centers, we have people that are from our consumer services staff that have been at the local assistance centers for the last couple of weeks. Please give us a call. We want to help, so anything we can help.
Thank you, John. And then Heather Corral is actually following up, and she's going to share a little bit more about the county. We're hoping to partner with the local MAC as well. Thank you, Heather.
Hi, I'm Heather Corral, County of Mendocino, Wisconsin, the Executive Office. We actually are going to be working with the Department of Insurance to have an insurance workshop next week. We're tentatively trying to have it Wednesday at 6 o'clock. So if you do have questions insurance related about rebuilding, not just about debris removal, we will be working with the Department of Insurance to have those questions answered for you. And so we'll be sending out a press release and giving you those details as soon as we can.
Thank you, Heather. So Janelle's going to start walking through the room because I know I see people filling out some question cards, and we'll be giving the mic to her to see if she needs to call any of those out to us. As I have you turn to the indemnification and liability page of your right of entry form, because we know this is one of the hardest parts of the right of entry form is that you're indemnifying government agencies for potential work done, and it's a challenging thing in a lot of contracts that when you're contracting for something or certain entities indemnifying. So we want to actually help you know that there is actually a later section that we'll touch on later in the document that talks about repairs. And the fact that there's an operations chief, and they're going to be a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers operations chief who helps oversee, like Josh mentioned, when they're out in the field, what's occurring, and if there is contractor work that's done and there's a concern about that work, there's actually a way for them to flag that in the field and to initiate repairs as part of their insurance coverage. And Josh, I don't know if there's any more you can add to that. Okay. So certainly, even though you're indemnifying in the big picture, there is a process to go through if there's a concern about repairs. And then there's also a section that we, I'm going to actually hand this to Nash. I'd like to turn the page. For eligibility. So if you actually go to the page that is page 4 of your document, that's where the indemnification language is about holding harmless certain organizations. And then if you turn to page 5, there's actually a section about eligibility that I mentioned at the beginning. That this program, through the state and federal partnership with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, is only available to residential property. This can be rental property as well. If it's the occupant's primary or secondary home. So the property must not be owned by any business or commercial affiliation other than as a second residence. So I know some of you might have different scenarios where you have a personal residence on your commercial property, and I think we're encouraging you to work forward, and we want to work with you to take advantage of this program, and we'll be looking at those with the assessor's office in each case to help make this as broad as is possible through the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers support. But it's really not designed for commercial properties or businesses. It really has to be determined that it's a family residence.
That's correct. We're trying really hard right now to work with FEMA so that they can make those private domiciles on those, say, wineries or other commercial properties, make those eligible, and they're going to make that determination, and hopefully we'll get a response in the next couple days on what that looks like.
Thank you, Josh. And Nash can add just a little bit. You may have heard Nash. I heard he was on the radio this morning. He wasn't live. It was actually a video that he did with Kirk Ford in our environmental health department, and trying to give more information on video and picking up some clips. So thank you, Nash.
Thank you, Tammy. One of the things that keeps coming up as a question is, so my house was not damaged, but my outbuilding, my garage, my accessory structure. Again, this is a residential situation, so please complete the form, put the instructions on the form on the back page, and note that that's the case. Again, so we want to make sure that things like fences, walls, outbuildings, I'll even say chicken coops or anything like that, those are accessory to the residential use. So those are covered under this program as well.
Thank you, Nash. And Mary Lynn, would you mind, as our assistant planning building chief, to support Janelle with the question cards? Come up with Janelle. Thank you, Mary Lynn. So one thing that's been mentioned a couple of times, but it's actually explicit in writing when you sign this, is about the owner notification of entry. So Josh mentioned it earlier. But this actually says in writing when you sign it that you're going to be given 24 to 48 hours of advance notice. And as Nash has said several times, the more phone numbers you put down, the better. We will call and make sure that there's a process to contact you at as many numbers that you put on there. Phone number, email, anything you have, we want to help you give notice. But as Josh said, the first testing of the soil and to test for asbestos and those assessments that go out are done initially, and you're not called for the testing, only on the date of the debris removal. So there is a point right below that we want to make sure everyone reads about property accessibility, because as you're giving your right of entry, it's really important to understand if you have a gate or other unique aspects that it's noted around the accessibility that you have. And then we know this really large question that's come up about foundations that follows that section. So you can see in the right of entry form, it's very specific about foundations, and actually I'm going to let you explain it explicitly, Josh, right now.
So FEMA's determined for this program that foundations In previous fires, they've seen structural damage to those, and as a whole, they've decided that they want us, the Army Corps, if we're going to get a right of entry, we're going to remove the foundation completely. So that is just without question, we're going to remove them, and unless that changes, which I would say that can change, but right now that's our policy. What we will be doing, however, is trying to leave retaining walls in place to help soil stability. We know there's a lot of homes in this area, and in Lake County especially, where they're built on hillside slopes. And so we're going to remove the foundations and as much as possible leave those retaining walls to help with soil stability, so as rains come, we can't get the rebuilding process started as quick. We're not going to cause erosion problems or other damage downstream, especially where you have a home at the top of the hill and several homes below that. So that would be a piece of that we're going to try and work with, is keeping those retaining walls in place.
So we have been asking our state and federal partners that is there any way to make any modifications to this requirement? And as Josh said, there haven't been any, but we certainly are asking that question because we know this is a concern for our residents. But one thing that we want to encourage you, if you're particularly concerned about keeping a foundation, is to reach out to an engineer yourself and get it tested now. Even though when you read this section on page 5, it's very clear, right? If you decide to keep your foundation, you're going to be opting out of the program. That's what this says, right? So you're going to be on your own doing a private cleanup if you want to keep your foundation. But the biggest thing we want to know is, how do you know the status of your foundation without getting it tested? So actually I'd asked Lee Howard if we have engineers here in the county right now who can go out and test a foundation for you. And if you go to North Coast Builders Exchange website, they have some of those vendors for you. We're happy to post that on the county's website if that's helpful to you, so you can at least get the test done now and know what's the condition of your foundation and help you make this critical decision to opt out or not of this program. Anything else you want to add to that? So then if you turn to page 6, we know that other big areas, concerns because of stories that we've heard from Lake County about potential damage to septic systems or wells. So what we've been encouraging people to do is, if you know where your septic system is, please stake it out. You know, go out on your property and make it clear. We wish we could have a single color, but we just want you to make it clear and post it. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has assured us that if you have staked out areas that are clear and marked, they will be avoiding those areas and considering that as they go out to do their assessment and certainly their cleanup. So please stake those out. If you're not sure where your septic system is, I'll let Nash tell you how you can get that from the Wycomitos offices.
So again, what you want to do is you want to stake out those areas for the foundations. And one of the things that in conversations with, septics, in talking with the Army Corps, the question has come up, you know, if you get your 48-hour notice, your 24-hour notice, can I be there on the site? The answer is yes, but you need to be out of the way so they can do their job. Oftentimes people have direct knowledge of where certain improvements are on the property, and that's fine. They will respect that, but you can give that information to them in the field. But we do encourage you to rope that off, stake it out, put a cone out there, do something, and put that in the right of entry form. The other thing too is, maybe you don't know where the septic system is, where the improvements are. You can come to Planning and Building Services / Environmental Health, 860 North Bush Street, and we can dig up a plot plan or a site plan on both the building side and on the septic side. So we will provide that to you free of charge. All it is an 8.5 by 11 copy, and you'll know if there's any improvement shown on there. So the information may be out there. In some cases, the septic system may have been constructed a long time ago, and there may not be information in our files. Again, that is a strong possibility. So how do I do that? Again, Environmental Health will probably attest to this, but you can contact a site evaluator who can go out to the site and hunt down that septic system, those leach lines and so on.
Thank you, Dan. So if you turn to page 6, where that's the section where on the top of the page it has the wells and septic systems overview, a little bit about propane and fuel tanks that you can mark and how to mark those off as well. And then repairs. So this is the section I mentioned earlier about repairs, where it says the operations chief may authorize attempted repairs. And this is, we are asking on your behalf to get even more information about what that process will entail and how that's designated for that determination to be made. Because again, we know it's no one's intention to damage anything, but if anything does happen, how that gets authorized through the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers processes. And I'm sure by next week we'll have even more answers to your questions. I know we still tonight don't have answers for every question, even especially about tree removal. But as we continue to work with our local partners, with the Conservation District, with our state and federal partners, we're continuing to try to get as many of your answers to help you make these important next step decisions. Then finally, I know now shared this last week, and he shared this in his video and online, is that the form ends with a lot of 2 pages for you to just write in your specific property concerns and any special instructions. And we really want to encourage you to do this. This is part of what U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has to look at. We have county employees looking at this as well, and really trying to pay attention to how we deal with any special requests or special instructions, and work with you on what your concerns are through this process. So we really encourage you to be as detailed and explicit as possible. You can certainly add a page or add attachments of copies of your plans that you get or that you have to your documents to make that as detailed as possible. So I'm going to actually turn it for some questions, and I think Janelle has the microphone to see if there's some pressing things that we can answer right now that we didn't cover in our initial discussion.
What we'll do is we'll take a few questions out of each week and categorize them in the different areas of concern. The number of questions here will not likely be able to address in this type of a forum. So when we get to the tabletop, we'll have county staff coming there and assisting you. We'll definitely address those that we didn't get to in this dialogue. But then also, if you did not put your contact information on here, please get that to us so that we can respond to you. We will take the information, we will respond to you either via email or we'll give you a phone call to follow up with your questions. So the first question, is it possible to keep my asphalt driveway? If I can turn in my right of entry form, does it give up my right to refuse service?
So there's 2 parts to that question, and Josh, I don't know, can you answer the asphalt driveway question?
Yeah, so we will not be removing driveways. Driveways are not part of the program. We won't be removing driveways. Those are outside of the burn area, the main home. Those won't be removed.
Thank you. And then the second part of that question, I think, was if you sign this, can you rescind or change your mind later? And so what we're working on as we roll out our private contracting processes this week is a process that would allow you to potentially rescind this. And any lawyers in the room will know it's not typical that you have a process that you could rescind an agreement. But we're looking at a way, if you actually can show us that you have a plan with a private response, we're trying to see if there's a process by which that you could rescind. But right now, there's not a process to sign this now and then take it back. That's an official state and federal process, but we are hoping to have that as an official process for you this next week. But again, the intention that if you signed this and then you later changed your mind, you would be able to just demonstrate that you have a private debris removal plan in place and that you're opting out of this. So what we're working on is an opt-out form, and so you would be able to opt out of this right of entry process and thereby demonstrate that you're opting into a private removal process. So we're intending to have that to you this week.
Okay, the next question. I have a very steep slope that goes down into a tributary of the Russian River. I am very concerned about soil erosion. Who do I contact for help to prevent soil erosion?
So we have some great local resources, and I don't know if there's anybody else who can come up from our federal and state partners around soil erosion. But Janelle, can you repeat again the question? Was there a specific scenario?
Who do I contact to prevent soil erosion? So who's the point of contact?
For soil erosion. Well, we don't have an overall point of contact for soil erosion at this point. We certainly have some questions on the state website about soil erosion, And the local resources we have, they're actually on the back table. So some of our local partners with the Conservation District, both at the federal and state level, and our Farm Bureau, I don't know if there's anyone who wants to speak to those, but those resources that are available, and some of those handouts are going to be on the back table as you leave tonight, and we'll be sure to update some of our FAQs around soil erosion, kind of broadly in those different scenarios that people might access.
How many days notice before removal of ash and debris?
24 to 48 hours.
Can you have a house foundation removed and retain a separate structure such as a barn foundation or outbuilding?
So right now, depending on the eligibility, my understanding is we will only be removing the house foundations. If FEMA declares other structures eligible, we still haven't made a determination if we'll be removing those foundations as well. So for instance, I looked at the property today, they had a house that was clearly burned down, and right behind it they had what looked like possibly a pole barn that also burned down. I don't know right now if that secondary structure is eligible for debris removal, and if we did do that, if the foundation would be removed. But that's a specific question that I sent up to FEMA today to get clarification on. We want to know what that process looks like, and FEMA's going to make that eligibility determination. As soon as we hear back, that's something that we'll relay back to the county so that they can put up on their FAQ sites.
What is the Army Corps of Engineers' position on swimming pools damaged by the fire? Will burned concrete with debris attached to it be removed? Will the underground portion of the pool be left alone?
That's correct. So right now, my understanding from FEMA is that if there's a swimming pool that has debris on it or it was damaged and there's debris in the way, we'll remove that debris as well as the concrete that was underneath the debris, but we will not be removing the rest of the pool. If the pool is undamaged and there's debris in it, we will be removing the debris, draining the pool, and then fencing it off as a safety hazard.
As soon as debris is removed, can I put a travel trailer on my property while I rebuild?
So I'll let Nash answer the latest one.
So yesterday, the Board of Supervisors approved an ordinance that takes effect immediately. It's an urgency ordinance that requires you to apply for an administrative permit. There is no charge. The board waived that fee yesterday. So with that, you can submit the application. We will process it, and that will allow you to establish a travel trailer or a recreational vehicle on your property so that you can be there under the term of the permit, which is for 3 years. Typically, what was happening in the past, and it occurs with others, again, this is an emergency ordinance that applies to this situation, is you had to pull the building permit first, and then the administrative permit was issued subject to the building permit. In this case, you will be issued an administrative permit that is good for a 3-year period, and within that 3-year period, you will have the opportunity to apply for the permit. And why we did that is because we know how tough it's going to be for you to be able to get drawings, submit plans, permits, and going through that process. So what we're trying to do is to get people back onto their properties, their own properties. So the idea is to get you situated so you can use an RV or a trailer as temporary housing on your property.
And I just want to add that the county employees, the majority of them that are out at your tables, as you go to specific questions about your property, the vast majority of them are planning and building services employees and environmental health employees. So when you have specific questions about the next step on your property, they are the most knowledgeable, or know how to grab the most knowledgeable person about your specific questions. Janelle, do you have another question?
Is all debris from any structure assumed to have toxins? And if so, will it be removed? Or will FEMA be looking at specific materials?
So I'll let Josh talk about this and how it relates to how the debris is tested and handled.
So right now, not all the debris is considered to be toxic. That's part of what DTSC and EPA is going in to remove the household hazardous waste. Those areas that they mark that have asbestos-containing material potentially, we'll evaluate those. Our contractors are required to have a licensed asbestos inspector on site with them to evaluate those. If that's the case, that will be handled. And then I believe it's every 5,000 cubic yards or tons of material, they have to do more testing on that ash. So they'll be constantly testing as they remove to determine if the material is toxic. We want to remove it at the lowest possible level that we can, because that'll be the cheapest for everybody involved. So we don't want to make the assumption that all the material is toxic. We'll be doing testing throughout all the debris removal process to ensure that we can remove stuff appropriately and that it can just be considered general, what they would call construction demolition debris. That's much easier and cheaper for us to remove, and it'll be quicker for the homeowner to get back on their property.
So I'm looking at Trey Strickland, our environmental health director, to correct me if I don't get this correct. But what we know is even if some of the debris on your property does not have toxins in it, we do not have a landfill here in Mendocino County that will even take fire debris. So our landfill will not take any of the fire debris from your property, no matter how it tests along the spectrum of hazardous. So certainly the most hazardous materials are being picked up right now through DTSC's Household Hazardous Waste process, except of course some of these contaminants that will be further assessed. But it will be a landfill outside of this county, and we're waiting for the state and local processes to determine which landfills will be able to take the fire debris, but it will be a county outside of this.
The local paper quoted that folks are waiting for more people to fill out paperwork before they start cleanup. If I have filled out all the paperwork, why must I wait for my neighbors to do theirs?
We'll have the Corps of Engineers talk a little bit about how they try to prioritize and target areas.
So for some areas where you may have a street that's got a single home at the end of it, if we get that paperwork, that's something that we can target quickly. For large neighborhoods where there's 10 or 15 homes in one neighborhood, if we only have 2 or 3 of those elementary forms, for efficiency, it doesn't make sense for the contractor to go in, do those 3 homes, and then leave where all that debris is still there going around. I could recontaminate a clean site. So what we'd like to do is be able to go into an area or a street where we can clean everything on that street and ensure that we do that as efficient as possible. As we get those right of entry forms, that's something that we'll be working with the contractor and the local county to determine what our priorities look like and how we're going to attack this so that we can get the high priority areas as far as contamination of the Russian River or other watershed areas done first, and then work with the contractor to determine how they can get into areas and get the bulk of something done without having to go back and forth across the county.
If I want to have trees removed, would that be paid from the debris removal? If so, will the debris removal people get the balance? Or will debris get all and I have to pay for the tree removal out of my pocket?
So I know Josh touched on this, and we still are getting more and more guidance about tree removal. What I do want to add is, I don't know if CAL FIRE is still here, but if you have an immediate health and safety concern about a tree, we want you to report that now before any of this happens. And even today, I know one of our individuals who's spoken at meetings about a concern on their property. CAL FIRE is assessed to that. We really want to address those right away. And then I'll let the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers talk about what they do, what their plan is right now.
So I mentioned before, the trees has changed, and I'm not sure at the FEMA level what that determination was. I believe it was the scope of what we were doing, and they decided that was going to prolong the process. There's some properties with lots of trees on there, and so spending more and more time on a single property to remove trees would have prolonged the entire process. So the determination was made. We would only be removing those trees that impacted our immediate ability to go on and clear the ash and the debris from the home site. The trees that are left are going to be the responsibility of the homeowner, and I don't know that would be if you have an insurance policy that covers specifically tree removal. That would be a better question maybe for the insurance. I can't speak to that. That's not something that I'm knowledgeable about as far as the tree removal piece.
We do have a request for some clarification.
I'm hearing there's a lot of rumblings on this side of the room, so I think that that we need some clarification. The big issue is what exactly will be cleaned. And so if you have a house that's burnt and you have other structures on the property that are burnt, so if you sign up with the ROE, so you sign up basically with Army Corps and ECC to do this, then will everything be cleaned, or are you only cleaning the house and around the house? Will you clean all the structures that are burned, the foundations for all the structures?
So that's something, again, we are looking at today. I've heard a lot of different stuff, and that's moving. So Cal OES and FEMA are in discussions, and that's something we sought clarification on this morning, and we still didn't get it tonight. We don't know right now. I can't tell you what will be removed on your property. I know for a fact that we'll be removing the main living quarters, your primary residence. That would be removed, and we don't know. FEMA's making the determination what's eligible, so we work for them. So if they decide we're going to clean every outbuilding on your property, then we will, and that will be on our contractor to make that happen. If they decide only the primary residence, then that's all that will be cleaned up. And again, I'm hoping to get an answer to that. I was hoping today, it didn't happen. So ideally within the next couple days, and we'll communicate that out as quick as possible to the county so that they can get that information out to you.
In either case, until that's determined by the Corps, please put all structures and label what they are on the forms, so that if it is determined that they are cleaning those up, at least it's all inventoried and documented in the right of entry form.
I think this is very challenging. SEO Angelo, I know, is thinking right now. We've heard very mixed messages on this already. From Cal OES is the Office of Emergency Services, and now tonight from our federal partners. So we will be tracking that down. CEO Angelo is on the phone several times a day with the state and federal partners to get these things clarified and figure out misunderstandings. We actually have been asserting that really, if you have structures that are near your house that clearly are distinguished from a commercial property that you're running or your business, that our understanding was those were included until tonight. So we'll be actually working closely to follow up on what Josh has said tonight to get clarity as soon as possible. So thank you for your questions, Janelle.
And just again to reemphasize, there's several questions that were paragraphs in length. We will not be reading those. If you did not include your contact information, please do, because we would like to get you responses and answers to those. So if you submitted them, you didn't have your contact information, you don't hear us address that, we'll be walking the tables. If we don't address it that way, get us your contact information.
Now just fill out another form on the table, there's plenty, so please do.
Do we stake out the leach field in addition to the septic tank?
Yes, please do. You can use a variety of materials, and actually, I'll let Nash start and show you if you want to make your way forward. The question was about, kind of what, do you spray paint it? How would be some best ways to do that? So I'll let Nash start and Trey can come over and.
I would use any markings that are available to use. You can use the yellow construction tape, orange fencing, cones, spray paint, put a sign up. You could put a stake down a sign, this is my leach field. This is my septic tank. You want to make sure you clearly identify what those septic improvements are. I'm going to hand it over to Trey now.
Well, I don't really have anything to add to what Nash said. But I think the 4-foot stakes in the ground and use caution tape. Then it's up and off the ground and more visible.
What if part of the foundation is a retaining wall as well?
So I'll let Josh talk a little bit more about retaining walls.
So that goes back to earlier with soil stabilization. We're going to do our best to leave those retaining walls in place and not damage those retaining walls, just to help with soil stability.
This is a two-part question about propane. Can propane company come in and repair their propane tanks? What happens to privately owned propane tanks that contain coal but have fused valves or damaged valves.
I'm gonna ask Adam to take what you can with that, and then
So our focus when we're in the field is on propane tanks that are typically 30 gallons or smaller. I know some folks have those larger 250 to 300 gallon propane tanks. We don't touch those. We typically look to the homeowner to deal with that as well as the propane company. So we don't mitigate the large ones, we just take care of the small ones.
I think definitely it would be a question for your insurance provider and I don't know, actually, and the propane companies themselves.
If damage occurs to the road where I own, who repairs the road? So I'm assuming that's a private road.
If damage has occurred to my private road, right now, is that the question? We know that that's happened right now. Well, I don't know if we have an expert in the room who can answer that. I saw Howard. I don't know, it's not public roads.
Our
We'll follow
DOT
up.
director is here, we will follow up with that.
Yeah, thank you.
Will rain delay the cleanup time? And could rain spread debris, increasing the cost for cleanup or cause debris to leach further into the soil?
So certainly why we've done this emergency measure around the watersheds is with the concern of rain. And I know I see Brett, I'm not sure, oh, and the chief is here. If someone can talk right now, there's also a process through CAL FIRE going on that is a watershed emergency response team that's doing additional assessments. And one of the things they've shared with us in their expertise is that a couple of inches of rain is actually a helpful thing right now. So 1 or 2 inches of rain over a longer period of a day or 2 days is not a concern. But when the concern hits is when it's 4 to 7 inches of rain, and then or if there's a lot of rain in a very short time period. So we'll have those reports coming out this week around water danger, but it is why we've done this emergency measure under Chief Gonzalez's team to do some additional protection of the watershed ways, is that once we get to a certain threshold of rain, there are concerns about heavy metals that can leach into the ground in other areas, and we're working daily with our state and federal partners about what other mitigations we need to address as individuals and as a community and collectively to make sure that we're doing all we can to protect our waterways and our environment.
So just to add on to that, and many of you have noticed the California Conservation Corps, CAL FIRE, and the teams that are out there right now in all of these critical areas. They're encapsulating these areas with visqueen, plastic, sandbags, until the Army Corps of Engineers can get in there and clean all this up. So that effort is going on right now, in case you're seeing those crews.
We have a burned up car in our burned up garage. Will it be removed and disposed of?
Yes, it will be.
Yeah, you said that you're not making buildings that aren't attached to the primary residence, and now you're saying a garage on the property with the car in it would be removed after your permit.
So that was an assumption that the car was attached, or the garage was attached to the house. If it's completely detached, again, that's something we're trying to get clarification on. And I apologize, I've done a lot of debris removal. I've been doing this since 2005, and every single time it's different, and every day things change. What I would encourage is, again, fill the right of entry form out when we do our site assessments. Part of what we do with the contractor is look at the whole entire scope of the property. We're putting all of that on there. In the event that FEMA decides everything's eligible, we already have it marked down and we will take everything off the property. But again, we need that clarification from FEMA, and they're working with Cal OES to make determinations. And all this boils down to cost and efficiency for how fast we can get things done.
And I do believe that we do have an answer to that. CEO Angela just whispered in my ear. But so before we leave this stage, she'll return and we'll get some clarification on that. Explain the car removal process better. At the last meeting, we were told they would be removed, and tonight we said how we'll be doing it. My insurance has said that ACE is taking care of it, ACE. Explain. So car removal.
ACE meaning Army Corps of Engineers, I believe, yeah. So I don't know if that's specific enough. I think if people have will you repeat it one more time?
So if I had a car on the property, just the vehicle itself, who will be taking care of that removal?
My understanding right now is that we are responsible, the Corps of Engineers, so once those cars go through either the abatement program or the California Highway Patrol and they're marked off, they will be removed as scrap. Again, the location is going to be a portion of that we're trying to get clarity on. I know right now, if it's specifically in the driveway and it's access to the house, it will absolutely be removed, or if the garage is connected to the house, those will be removed as well.
So one of the things that's come up as far as the details, so please list that car, what it was on the right of entry form. If you have the VIN number to that vehicle, please put it on the, how do I get the VIN number? Contact your car insurance agent. They will be able to provide you with that information. That will allow for the Army Corps, the Highway Patrol, and our Code Enforcement Division to work with the DMV to try to clear that car and remove it from their system, so that then the Army Corps can go ahead and remove it as scrap.
Thank you. See you, Angela.
Thank you. So Senator McGuire comes through again. He got on his cell phone and made a couple calls to get additional information. So Senator McGuire, do you want to tell us what we found out?
And I want to say we're grateful for your patience. As you know, this is the largest wildland disaster that this state has ever seen, and is now turning into the largest in our nation's history. So again, I want to apologize that there's a lot of fast-moving details, and I appreciate your patience with us. So we just got off the phone with the Western States Administrator for FEMA, Mr. Fenton, who is based here in California, an amazing guy. And I want to clarify about when it comes to, if you turn in your ROE, what will get cleaned up. So if you have a home, and your home was destroyed by the fire, then you also have outbuildings, like a barn. If your home was destroyed, the Corps and their contractor will also clean your outbuildings as well, and the foundations. Now, if your home is not destroyed, but I'm going to give you an example. You have a barn that was destroyed. They will clean any outbuilding 120 square feet or larger. If it's less than 120 square feet, they will not clean it. So I'm going to repeat back. If your home was destroyed by the fire, and you have also lost your outbuildings that are on your property, all buildings, including your home, if you're under the public option, will be cleaned up. The debris will be removed. If your home is still standing, and you have an outbuilding 120 square feet or less, and that's been destroyed, we will not touch it. You're going to be responsible for your own cleanup. Want to reiterate, retaining walls and patios, as we heard from the Corps, I'm grateful, will remain. They will pump your pool. And the reason for that is all issues. I understand folks may not agree, but it is a health risk and a safety risk if no one is there. So I know there may be some disagreement, and folks may not want that, but that is going to be the protocol that's going to be moving forward. I just want to end it with this. The County of Mendocino, and I neglected to say this before, has been working overtime on your behalf, and I just want to take a moment to say thank you to their incredible staff, led by Carmel Angelo, who literally does not sleep these days and sends text messages at 3:30 in the morning. But I just want to say thank you to the incredible county staff who are working day and night, 24/7 on your behalf, and I neglected to say that is how grateful I am. So I apologize.
Thank you, Senator McGuire, for that really important clarification. Thank you for getting that in real time.
What is a realistic timeline for debris removal and cleanup and rebuilding?
So what is a realistic? We can give you our current timeline that we're operating under, and Josh told you to start, but it might be helpful for Adam to say when will DTSC be expected to be finished? Can you speak to that first?
So we're in the second week of our HHW assessment and removal. We're definitely going to be here next week, and it'll probably spill into the following week. So we're looking at 3.5 weeks. I think that works out to about the 13th or 14th or 15th of November. I'm hoping we'll finish. And then we'll turn it over to the Army Corps.
So part of our process, this is a new debris removal type that we haven't done before. Right now, we need to figure out our scaling. So as we do the first couple of homes this weekend and early next week, we'll be looking to scale up the contractor appropriately. Our goal is early spring, so this coming spring, early spring. And we'll need to scale up appropriately for that. So depending on what the timeline looks like for the contractor for a single property, we're going to scale that up right now. The Corps of Engineers is prepared to bring in as many as 100 quality assurance supervisors, and the contractor has told us that they could supply at least 100 crews, potentially more than that. So depending on what we see and what we can get truck-wise on the road, we're going to maximize our ability to remove debris. We're targeting early spring and hoping that we can be done before that. But that's what we're looking at for a timeline, at least right now. And hopefully we'll be able to tighten that up as we get moving and see what it takes to remove debris from a property.
So Josh, I think what you're talking about though is the timeline for the entire region or all the fires that you're working on, not just Mendocino County, what you just described.
That's it.
So we'll be working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to be even more specific for Mendocino County, but that's for the broader region right now is on the timetable. But as you heard Josh say, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is going in and assessing their first properties here in Mendocino County this weekend. So we're not waiting until DTSC is finished. In real time, every day, Nash's team is getting the information of what DTSC is cleared, matching that up with right of entry forms, getting those assessor approved right of entry forms to U.S. Army Corps of Engineers so that they can start to stage and look at the neighborhoods they're going into first.
So one of the other things that is occurring is DTSC makes that contact with me every night. They tell me how many parcels are cleared by them. That information is then given to me as far as addresses, location, then that is mapped in our department, and then that will be provided to the Army Corps of Engineers. We'll also be providing the right of entry forms to the Army Corps of Engineers. And so there'll be a correlation between sites cleared, ROEs signed, and so on. So this will allow for a more efficient approach to the cleanup by both the Army Corps of Engineers and DTSC. So we're trying to get, as these sites are cleared, Army Corps to come in. But again, what's going to be very important is for you to sign those right of entry forms, you can vet them, get those to the Army Corps so that they can go ahead and start looking at the entire neighborhoods. As Josh mentioned, what makes it inefficient is they can only, if they can't clean the entire area, but only one or two sites, there's the possibility of contamination of those sites that have been cleaned up already. We're trying to avoid that.
So I think this is an important one because we aren't going to get to all these questions, but how do I watch this meeting again? Where will it be available? So the county does have a Facebook site. If you haven't been to it, you can find it on Facebook. Mendocino County. You go to Mendocino County, you'll find it. We are live streaming it now. It will be available for playback. We also have our YouTube channel, which is Mendocino Video. We have that live streaming Mendocino County Video. We also have it recorded, and it'll be at a better quality. Sometimes what we have here for live streaming can be a little sketchy. So we will have it on there. The audio will be there. And again, if your questions you've submitted up here, there are some very lengthy questions. If you did not give us your contact information, please do. But we will be doing an FAQ, so whether or not we have your direct contact information, those answers should be available.
So we're going to take just a few more questions. I think we posted this from 6 to 7:30. We know you've been here a long time. We're going to answer a few more questions up here, and then we're going to be in the room. There will be employees at the table to help you work through. If you're trying to fill out your right entry form tonight, we're happy to take those from you tonight if you're ready to give them to us tonight and answer any questions that you have. But we'll take a few more questions up here for the group.
Where do you get a hazmat certificate if DTSC has already been to the home? I understand that homeowners need this to obtain debris removal permits. This is for a private debris removal.
So Adam looks like he can answer part of this, and then we will be rolling out in more explicit detail our local private debris removal program in the next week.
So DTSC, once we're finished doing the hazmat sweep of your property, we will stake it with a DTSC, the acronym across the top of the stake. We do not issue a hazmat certificate. All we do is we clear the property and then we turn that information over to Mendocino County. So there will be no hazmat certificate issued by the department.
Thank you, Adam. And we, as Nash described already, we have a record of every property that DTSC is cleared. It's here at the county as well as the state level. So if there's any question about that, we certainly have a local record of that as well.
I do want to add something about a couple of the earlier questions. One with regard to vehicles. So if you have comprehensive coverage, hopefully you've already reported to your insurer the damage to the vehicle. Hopefully they've come out and taken a look, perhaps. But your comprehensive coverage typically will cover the removal of those vehicles. So it's only where there's comprehensive coverage, I'll answer legally. And then the other thing I wanted to mention on the trees that maybe won't be removed, but are potentially hazards. So this isn't necessarily consistent across all coverages, because it's not really a mandate. But again, I mentioned take a look at your homeowner's policy. Some homeowners' policies will have a coverage for your landscape. It's either something that will come out of your limits for your dwelling structure, or it may be, in some policies, a bit of an additional percentage towards landscape above your dwelling coverage. But typically in that coverage, there's a sub-limit or a cap on how much they will pay for any one tree or shrub, and a common cap is $500 towards any one tree.
And I did want to add, we do have several questions regarding tree removal. They're very specific in nature, so would need to be addressed on an individual basis. We do have those. We will be circulating them, but I don't know that there's the expertise here that will be able to address them. But we will follow up with those again when we address all of these in an FAQ or individually. I'll go ahead. We have, can we put a travel trailer on the property before the cleanup by the Army Corps of Engineers?
That's a great question, Nash.
So as it was explained to me, if the parcel is large enough and you're out of the way of the Army Corps of Engineers, again, you have to go through the administrative permit process, and we can go ahead and document that. But we want to make sure that that placement of the travel trailer is out of the way of the Army Corps of Engineers. I don't know, Josh, if you want.
No, that's fine. I did want to add, I have a number for ECC. They've created a 1-800 number to call in to ask them questions regarding their contractors, their business practices. It is 1-800-444-0625. 1-800-444-0625.
Can we have the next meeting before the deadline?
Yes, we actually are looking at establishing a deadline for right of entry forms. There is not currently a deadline. We're looking at the week of the 13th to establish a deadline. We will make sure we have a follow-up meeting and FAQs posted before we conclude that deadline.
Will additional building inspectors be hired to help speed along the building process?
As much as possible. Again, I don't control the budget, but we will do whatever we can.
Any final question, any final comments from CEO Angelo, or any final questions from the group here?
I think we just wanted some clarification on cars. Will they be taken or will they not?
You were something.
Yes.
Yes, now that we're removing all the outbuildings, then the cars will be removed as well.
Thank you very much. The only comment I want to make is really to thank everyone. These were tough questions, and we know that this is a moving target, and answers are changing, but we think we've got a lot of good answers tonight. At this point, before everybody leaves, I want to ask Senator McGuire if he has any final comments. You're good? Are you sure? Come on.
I'll just hit it like I started it. I'm third generation in Hillsburg. And I cannot imagine what you've gone through. My mother and father lost their house 3 years ago. It is the worst experience that someone will go through. But I will want to recommit to you. We are not in this for the short term. We're in this for the long term. And I got to tell you, there is no hard work in County of Mendocino. And we're going to have some tough days ahead, but we are going to be able to get through this. And we're committed, whether it's the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which we're grateful, the Department of Toxic Substance Control, Cal OES, FEMA, County of Mendocino. We are together and we are unified to be able to work with you to be able to return your neighborhoods back and your community back here in the coming months. I just want to say thank you for allowing us to be here today.
We'll be here if there's other individual questions, and please, if you need to get some additional questions to county employees or here.
Who do we give our forms to? I'll take them.
You can give your forms as you leave, or to a county employee who has their hands raised, either way.